This story has everything. It's got Elon Musk, it's got dark web, it's got Bitcoin, and of course it has the FBI and hackers. I had to click on this headline. Elon Musk was a prolific money launderer for hackers and drug traffickers, and actually it was secretly the FBI? Alright, so it wasn't really Elon Musk, but this was the guy's handle on the dark web forum where he was running his cryptocurrency money laundering business. And business was booming until the FBI arrested him, and then they took over his business for almost a year, continuing to do actual money laundering, send people money in the mail as the FBI in order to trace and figure out who this money launderer's customers were. And his customers ranged from convenience store owners all over Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx to some of the most notorious hackers on the planet. Yeah, I'm talking about the ones that got arrested for hacking the MGM and Caesars casinos in Vegas a few summers ago. All right, so this is just insane. I can't wait for the Netflix documentary. I want to break down exactly what was going on because this is like a really good look behind the scenes of the whole like criminal dark web, money laundering, turning crypto into cash, all this kind of stuff. I was really excited to read all this. And then I'm going to run through what the FBI did to take over this whole operation in order to arrest additional people. All right, so this story is out of the always wonderful 404 Media. Shout out to these guys. And like I said, how could you not click that headline? Come on. I wish it was actually Elon Musk. This story is so unhinged, it might as well be Elon Musk, but it's not. It's this guy, Elon Musk WHM. So the WHM stands for White House Market. This was the actual dark web market that this person was running this whole money laundering scheme out of. Until that got shut down, and then he wound up moving most of his customers over to his own personal Telegram group. But Elon Musk WHM was actually a guy in India named Anurag, who the FBI eventually caught by approving his visa application to visit the United States for some rare medical treatment that he needed, and he was arrested by the time he got here. So this guy, Anurag, Elon Musk, WHM, whatever, was advertising his services on this market because there's this great need within criminal groups to turn their cryptocurrency into actual money because most places don't accept Bitcoin or especially Monero to purchase real-world items like the fancy cars and houses that they all want. And what Anurag would do was he'd accept that cryptocurrency and then he'd mail them physical envelopes of cash, sometimes stuffed into pages of children's books, like this is straight out of a spy movie, and he would take a 20% cut for his services. He was bragging for being able to move up to $100,000 a day, and he was even bragging about doing millions of movement across continents. The other major feature of a money laundering service like this was no ID was required. Thanks to the crypto, your cash is in the mail. So if you're sitting on a bunch of dirty crypto from ransomware or drug sales or whatever scam you want, and you can't cash out on something like Coinbase or Binance, this was your guy. And apparently, like I said, business was booming. At one point, he was doing 200 sales a month, then 450 sales a month. He was even calling himself the biggest cash by mail provider on this White House market, which was his main site that he advertised on. Here's a photo he posted on Instagram and his Elon Musk WHM profile picture of his Telegram. So in April 2021 is when the FBI caught the trail of this Elon Musk WHM Money Mule service. They saw his advertisements for his service on various sites. They got the United States Postal Inspection Services involved. And the U.S. Postal Inspector is an agency that you do not mess with. What the FBI and the postal inspectors did is they set up a P.O. box in Kentucky that here's a picture of down here. They said it's the size of a shed, and they started using this service legitimately. So they would send Elon Musk WHM crypto in small orders, like $1,800 or $2,000, and they would get this cash to this PO box and then try to trace it. Like I said, the White House market shut down at some point in November 2021, and the FBI started communicating with Elon Musk WHM over Telegram or the encrypted messaging app Wicker. Shout out Wicker. They were awesome way back in the day. They started building up a rapport with this guy, right? So they started to get more and more personal. He was saying that drugs was how most of his clients made his money, but his richest clients were the hackers. During some blockchain analysis, they said nearly $90 million worth of cryptocurrency moved through Elon Musk WHM's network. He said he personally made $30 million in just a few years, and that he can move up to $1 million a week. Part of where he started to mess up was he was getting really personal with the FBI. He was telling them that he owned a geographic information system, GIS system company. And then another mess up was eventually that he sent a YouTube video to the FBI about that whole geospatial engineering area that he apparently knew a lot about, maybe even owned a company about. The video was called Indoor AR Navigation for Malls, Airports, and Retail Stores. The video had been viewed around 2,000 times. They sent a second video. That video had been viewed about 1,400 times. And in a very questionable move that some people are saying might be unconstitutional by the FBI, they went to Google, who owns YouTube, obviously, and demanded the IP addresses of anyone who viewed either of those two videos. And if they were logged in to a Google account when they viewed that video, the FBI demanded all the information that Google had about that Google account. The user's name, address, payment information, and even message logs. So there's some questions here of, is that constitutional? Because you're going to collect a ton of information about just ordinary YouTube viewers who are not suspects at all in any crime. So just by watching this video, if for some reason some guy who's into money laundering also likes my channel and sends this video to an undercover FBI agent, just because you're watching this video, you might get wound up tied to this investigation somehow. And maybe your message logs and your payment information and your location are in some FBI file because you watched this. That's pretty messed up. We are unsure if Google actually turned over all that information. They acknowledged the request, but then they stopped replying after they asked, well, did you give them the info? So we don't know. Google didn't say yes or no, but the FBI requested it. Another way this guy got caught was he was using stateside money mules. This guy, Elon Musk, WHM, is actually in India the whole time this is happening. He's got boots on the ground to actually mule a bunch of the money. So there was some patterns for money movement. A lot of it was out of Tarrytown, New York. They said whoever was shipping this money was using the same locations again and again. So this allowed them to trace some of the shipments to a guy in his early 20s in Westchester County, New York. 404 has the real name of this person, but they are not going to say it because apparently he cooperated with law enforcement. So they're going to call him Eric from now on if you see Eric on the screen. The FBI watched this guy come out of his home with packages that was being sent to their P.O. box in Kentucky filled with money. They coordinated this with the postal inspectors, like we said earlier. They arrest him at his house. He's living there with at least one parent, and he had about $600,000 in cash in his bedroom. So even though they were only buying like $1,800, $2,000 things, obviously this mule was much busier than just the FBI's controlled purchases. This guy said he met people around 3 times per week, received about 100 to 300K each time he met with these people. And a ton of this money had nothing to do with like drugs or hackers. It was just people who owned businesses like bodegas and convenience stores around New York who wanted to send money back to India. They put some video surveillance on this Eric, this money mule, and here's a bunch of pictures that they found along the way of just guys walking around New York City with bags full of cash, meeting up with a mule to send this money back to India. Apparently, they go into some detail here. Apparently, like culturally, this is a practice that's like older than banking. And this Elon Musk WHM guy just attached this whole cryptocurrency money laundering bit on top of this practice. I'm going to butcher this, but apparently in Arabic, it's called hawala, or in India, it's called hundi, or Angadia. And in the first bit of the FBI taking over this whole operation, instead of prosecuting Eric right away, they had already arrested him, but instead they used him to flip him to get info on the rest of this whole mule operation. They tracked him for 80 cash pickups over a few weeks, totaling more than $15 million. Sorry, not a few weeks, from February to September. So apparently this investigation was nuts. They were doing a whole bunch of like trying to trap this guy. They executed a bunch of search warrants against Apple and Binance and Uber. Then they started reviewing US visa applications. They identified the guy. They figured out that he had had a bunch of visa applications denied. And so then the FBI said, hey, why don't we approve a visa application now? This guy gets to the States. He gets arrested in September 2023. And then instead of just the FBI taking over the Eric Money Mule operation, they take over this whole Elon Musk WHM operation. This is a post on Dread, a different forum that was written a month after the arrest. So this is written by the FBI. Day one, I start on WHM. I hear same crap as today. Now I'm in fact tired of defending it. They're even making typos. Go to my first post 3 years back. Same crap. I'm a Fed, blah, blah, blah. 3 years, multiple markets, thousands of trades, 100% positive feedback. And I'm still here Working my ass off, still have clients who love me, are happy with my service. Good job by the FBI to sound like him. That was pretty convincing. So as part of this reporting, the U.S. Attorney's Office told 404 Media, apparently, once the FBI took over this whole money laundering operation, they followed any criminal actor that used that service, which included narcotics traffickers, hackers, and any sort of other criminals that needed to turn Bitcoin or Monero into cash. Apparently, they tied this service to drug trafficking prosecutions in Miami, a robbery at knife point in San Francisco, a ton of computer hacking investigations. One of the interesting investigations for people who watch this channel, one of the names that popped up was actually a guy that was part of Scattered Spider. Apparently, the FBI searched his house in February 2024. They were still running this whole money laundering operation covertly behind the scenes. And after his house got searched, apparently he was trying to cash out. So they said at the same time that he was apparently unaware that the cash services that he was using was also part of an undercover FBI operation. So the FBI was already investigating him, and all of a sudden he went to, unbeknownst to him, the FBI to say, hey, I need some cash. Here's some Bitcoin. For all of this, the guy Anurag was sentenced to 121 months in prison. The direct quote from the prosecutor here was that he was the founder and leader of a vast conspiracy that spanned the United States and emanated from India, which was designed to operate as a bank for the criminal underworld operating on the darknet. In doing so, the defendant ran one of the largest, most successful darknet crypto for cash operations, laundering more than 24 million in cryptocurrency in just under 2 years. That's an absolutely wild story. I love the look behind the curtain to see how this whole money laundering thing works. I think it's crazy that the FBI took over this whole thing. This isn't actually the first time they've done this. I skipped past it at the beginning of the story, but they've been known to take over some criminal operations in order to get some more information. I covered this in my newsletter when it came out, but they were running an encrypted phone company that was targeted just for drug traffickers. They took over that company and inserted a backdoor into all of those phones. Apparently, they also have started a cryptocurrency just to catch financial scammers, and then they also ran a dark web child abuse site for 2 weeks after capturing it, and they were delivering malware to the visitors to try to unmask them. But I feel like this latest one is an even bigger example. To run a money laundering scam of this magnitude for this long, almost a year. But it seems like it was successful for them. They caught a lot more people instead of just the one money launderer. Anyway, great job by 404 reporting on all the details of this. I'm sure that was a ton of court document stuff to pour through. I will include the link to the whole report down below. If you like all this stuff, please do all the YouTube things down below, like, share, comment, all that stuff. And if you want this stuff in more of a written format, I put out a weekly newsletter. You can sign up on volnew.com. Again, link below. Thanks so much. Follow for more cybersecurity news.